Haitian literature has been closely intertwined with the political life of Haiti. Haitian intellectuals turned successively as simultaneously to France, the UK, the United States, and African traditions. At the same time, Haitian history has always been a rich source of inspiration for literature, with its heroes, its upheavals, its cruelties and its rites. The 19th century. In the 18th century, settlers published descriptive and political works in France. Haitian literature has its origins in the country's independence. In 1804, Flaine's play The Haitian Expatriate made its debut, but the ruling classes and the intellectual elites in the emerging Haitian state remain imbued with French culture. There was a patriotic vein that recounted the deeds of convulsive independence. It adopted, over the 19th century, the successive literary currents coming from France: classicism, romanticism, Parnassianism, and symbolism. Major authors of this period include Antoine Dupré, Just Chanlat, François Romain L'Aquet Risson and Jules Soleil-Milcent, who founded the journal L'Abbé-Haitien in 1829. In this period of intense literary turmoils, newspapers like Le Républicain and L'Étoile Union opened the pages to the first romantics. L'Observateur, created in 1819, published romantic poetry. In 1836 the group of the Sénéchal was formed, with the romantic poets Ignace Nau and Corollan Ardouin. Later Oswald Durand and Marcellin Coycou represented this movement. Theatrical production was equally rich and important, parallel to the emergence of melodrama in France. All genres were represented: prose, drama, tragedy, comedy, and works reflecting current and changing mores. At the end of the 19th century, Haitian literature was imbued with the prestige of the French language and almost exclusively oriented towards Paris. Touching only the literate francophone minority, it ignored Haitians' daily lives, despite a strong patriotic dimension. The 20th century. The 20th century opened with the creation of the magazine Le Ronde by Pétion Guéraume in 1895. The poets in this intimate and delicate school continued to use France as a point of reference. This vein continued during the first part of the 20th century with poets such as Dante's Bellegarde and Ida Faubert. The American occupation, starting 1915, was a shock. The Génération de la Guerre created successive militant literary magazines: La Revue de la Ligue de la Jeunesse Haitienne, La Nouvelle Ronde, and above all La Revue Indigène. The indigenist movement, through its founder Jean Price Mars, invited writers to start creating rather than imitating. That is, to draw from the African roots of the Haitian people. The resistance was also expressed in the oral culture, stories, traditions and legends. At the same time, social realism in literature was advanced by Jacques Roumain and René Depester. The novel depicted the darkness of peasant life in the country. Stephen Alexis, René Depester, and Gerald Blancourt founded the magazine La Ruche in 1945. In 1946, André Breton was appointed by the Director of Cultural Affairs in Paris to establish relations with Haitian intellectuals. In the midst of a student strike opposing the Lescott government, the speeches resonated with the insurgents, led in particular by René Depester. However, the surrealist influence on Haitian literature remained small, though real. It is, for example, openly claimed by Clement Malloy Saint-Aud, collaborator of Griot's. The réalisme merveilleux of René Depester and Jacques-Stephen Alexis in the 1950s would be much more fruitful. Contemporary Haitian literature is part of the Francophone literature as well as the Latin American culture. Haitian diaspora, the Duvalier regimes, or the exodus of many Haitian intellectuals. The so-called writers of the diaspora engaged in a militant literature, treating Haiti in terms of memory, suffering, and guilt of being far from one's land. Books such as Jean Metelus's Louis Vortex depict the daily life of Haitian exiles in the host countries. For the Duvalier dictatorship to beginning of the third millennium, titles from the time period were parading themes of madness, possession, misery, violence, culminating into feelings of helplessness, bitterness, and dispersal. Haitian writers forced into exile during the second half of the 20th century included René Depester, Danny Leferrier, Jacques Stephen Alexis, Marie Vieux-Chauvet, and others. They are part of indigenism movement that advocated reappropriating the culture from the changes that the American occupation and Duvalier's dictatorship had brought about. By that time, the dictatorship had passed from Papa Doc to his son, Baby Doc. An exploitative sweatshop system had been established and the Haitian government had started sending its own citizens like slaves to work in sugar plantations in the Dominican Republic. Haiti.At explains this in her introduction to Chauvet's Love, Anger, Madness. Writers and intellectuals had begun leaving the country in throngs. Some contemporary authors, living in Haiti, Frank Etienne, Lionel Trujillo, Gary Victor, living in the U.S. or Canada, Anthony Phelps, Emile Olivier, Gary Clang, Josephat Robert Large, Joel Desrosiers, Danny Leferrier, Marie Saliagnant, Stanley P. Acutayen, Haiti.At, Fred Edson Lafortune, living in France, René Depester, Jean Metelus, Jean-Claude Charles, Louis-Philippe d'Alembert, Dimitri Lias Ledger. The language issue. There are many hypotheses on the origins of Haitian Creole. Linguist John Singler suggests that it most likely emerged under French control in colonial years when shifted its economy focused heavily on sugar production. This resulted in a much larger population of enslaved Africans, whose interaction with the French created the circumstances for the dialect to evolve from a pidgin to a Creole. His research and the research of Claire Lefebvre of the Université du Québec Montréal suggests that Creole, despite drawing 90% of its lexicon from French, is the syntactic cousin of Fon, a GBE language of the Niger-Congo family spoken in Benin. At the time of the emergence of Haitian Creole, 50% of the enslaved Africans in Haiti were GBE speakers. In any event, there are more than 200 Creole or Creole-related languages, whether based on English, Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch or French. As in Haiti, Creole is the language of collective memory, carrying a symbol of resistance. Creole is found in stories, songs, poetry, and novels. Despite Haiti's independence, French has remained the country's official language. French, a language of great cultural prestige, was spoken by the elite, and Creole did not enter the literary field until the second half of the 20th century. Although the vast majority of the population on the islands spoke Haitian Creole, however, the signage and educational institutions only use French, a remnant from the occupation. Only in 1969 did Creole join French as the official language of Haiti. The Indianists of the 1930s and the Negritude movement emphasized the African origins of Antillean people, giving it an identity lost in deportation and later colonization. But, for them, Creole was still considered an impure language of slavery. A Créolite movement, which succeeded Indianists and the Negritude movement, rehabilitated the Creole, which no longer was only the language of slavery, but that which we made together to survive. A shift was brought about in Haitian literature, from French to Creole, or du français vers le créole, or rather a dialogue between the two languages. Creole is used frequently in poetry and drama. Frank Etienne, for example, writes his plays only in Creole. An oral language, Creole is particularly suited in these genres, elevating the voice. In novels, the two languages are sometimes used together, creating a new and original way of writing. The choice of language for writing is an important issue in contemporary creative writing, especially for writers residing in Haiti.